Alright, like, click, and subscribe, do all that. Once again, it's Netflix time. This movie's called The Wandering Earth. A looming collision with Jupiter threatens Earth as humans search for a new star. The planet's fate now lies in the hands of a few unexpected heroes. It's a Chinese Mandarin movie based on the books. It came out in 2019. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's get to it. So right at the back, we got a kid and his dad looking through telescopes. They were staring at the planet Jupiter at the time. While he's asleep, he tells his dad to look after his son and all that. And because the Earth was losing its gravitational pull, it was basically floating around in orbit, so people conducted these boosters to make sure the Earth didn't crash into any planets. All this was happening because pretty much the sun was dying out. 17 years later, it's a winter wonderland on the top of the surface. The entire planet is at negative 84 degrees. I'm like, the fuck? And the story takes place in Beijing, so you think to yourself, how are these people surviving? Well, everybody's been living underground, and that's Ying Li, by the way. Ying Li was a little boy, now he's all grown up. His little sister Dodo was in class. Well, the grandfather basically adopted her back then, so yeah, this is a little sister. So they go to this shady guy to get some spacesuits, and this nigga just chilling, playing motherfucking the Contra on Nintendo Classic. That ain't big greatness. I still got mine, nigga. With both the controllers. And yes, it works to perfection. Well, anyway, he tries to trade him some fuel or oil or something like that to get these suits, but apparently he didn't have enough. So he presses some type of mechanism and locks them in a daggone room. Or just blows them back and they escape somehow. They make it to the line, they get to the surface, and he doesn't even bother to chase them no more because they know he got those suits illegally. So anyway, they get in the elevator and they go up top to reach the surface. I don't think any of them have seen the surface before. But when they get out there, they see it's a fucking blizzard. I don't know what it is about Mandarin films, but for some reason, even if it's a desolate area, it still looks all nice and bright and colorful. I don't even understand how they pull it off. It's fucking amazing. So he's able to climb in one of the rover machines that activated because he has his grandfather's press pass. And they drive out exploring the area. And it gives you a visual of the engine boosters that are surrounded all over across the world to keep the planet going in a certain direction. Meanwhile, on the navigation platform International Space Station, Lang Hai's dad is up there chilling. He pretty much runs it with this Russian dude, looking at a picture of his family, who he hasn't seen for 17 years and hasn't talked to in a decade. So they're basically about to go check up on the ship, and he's preparing himself to go back to Earth as everybody claps and congratulates him. Meanwhile, they've been driving around for too long because they found out there was a car inspection. So they get caught and they end up throwing him in jail. Then this random ass guy's talk to him for no reason. The grandpa finds out, he comes through to try to bail him out. He tries to bribe the officer with gifts, but then the officer finds out the rover was actually in his grandfather's name. And because he allowed a minor to drive it, he gets locked up too. So now they all sitting in there together, he ends up scolding the kids. And while all that's going on, an earthquake happens. The door gets destroyed in the process, so they free. And they end up freeing the other dude that was in there too, who he's definitely going to need later on in the story. They end up heading straight to the surface, and that's a good thing too because you got some underground spots that are getting collapsed in. So they hop in the rover and they're trying to get out of there and basically try to accentuate the situation. So planet Earth is basically losing its gravitational pull, and they have about 36 hours until it crashes into Jupiter. Now I'm thinking to myself, how the fuck do you stop that from happening? Well, on their journey, they run into these guys that I guess are part of some type of SWAT crew, and they need them to transport this light core thing to Shanghai. Keep in mind, they're in Beijing right now. I guess this light core system will allow people to get heat, and in the process, I guess, restructure the balance on the Earth. Not exactly sure what else it does, but it keeps the people alive, basically. So they start driving through this crevices. All of a sudden, the crevices starts caving in, shit start falling. One of the rover machines got destroyed, so they're trying to get into this inside building that's near in the crevice or whatever. And they're at the bottom of the ravine, so what they're trying to do is attach the light core to the elevator so it could be pulled up to the top, so they can get to the top of the building and continue on with their mission. But in the process, we don't know how long that elevator is going to hold up. I mean, this building's been frozen for over a decade, you know what I'm saying? They get almost everybody through before the elevator collapses. Grandpa swung through an open door, so he thought he got lucky. But his suit was running out of oxygen. There was no way anybody could get to him. So he basically just said, fuck it. But even if he did have oxygen, the whole building collapsed anyway. Everybody else made it to the top, of course. And because Lin Hai and Dodo are pissed off at the rest of the group for leaving their grandfather, they split up. On the space station, Dad's trying to communicate with everybody, but nobody's in responding. And something's malfunctioning on the outside, so they about to go fix it. I think it's the frequency transmitter or something like that, but the crazy thing is they still got to go out to fix it. That in itself is fucking crazy. They go out there, but the rope breaks. His partner damn near dies. But he pulls her back into safety. Meanwhile, Lin and Dodo find another rover to see if it worked. And this one smart guy out of like 6 people is the only one left alive inside of it. And they get it working, and this rover just happens to be carrying another light core. Meanwhile, the SWAT team, they reach Shanghai, but the town is pretty fucked up, so there's no point in even having the light core because everybody's probably dead. And they get pissed off as Shorty destroys the damn light core. So at this point, they're thinking they're pretty much dead here. But then Lin Yi pulls up and he comes to get him. And Lin's like, nigga, I'm in command now. If it wasn't for me, you'd be dead. So I guess from this point, they head back to Beijing. Meanwhile, on the space station, Dad's trying to fix the communicators and all that. But then shit start going haywire. The Russian dude ends up dying, and Dad makes it to the other airlock. He's trying to override the system, but the computer's not allowing him to. Meanwhile, Lynn and them get into an area where they can actually see Jupiter up close from the ground. This view is a fucking amazing, yo. That shit's insane. So they don't have that much time left before the Earth crashes into Jupiter, and they feeling like they're pretty much out of hope. And they get the message over the intercom. Everybody's just like, oh, fuck. But then Lynn gets this idea about helium. Something about it generating enough force to hit Jupiter so the Earth will push back on it or something. You have to watch it for the explanation because I have no idea how to explain that shit. Well, anyway, they're working together to get some shit done. They gotta push the core to get it right, flip a bunch of mechanisms here, get the program to 100% here, bunch of cords there, and do all this shit before the Earth crashes into Jupiter. A couple people die in the process. Dad gets the message he let his daughter sends out a message to everybody that's still at their respective places. She's telling them not to give up and all that, and to telling everybody to readjust their reactor cores in their respective cities. But after all that, it's still not enough power. It's at like 5,000, but it needs 2,000 more. So because the ship is so explosive, Dad overrides the system and he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He's going to drive the ship into the reactor beam that's being sent to Jupiter. But he talks to his son one last time before he does. Tells him to look up into the sky so he'll finally see a new star. And then the space station is done deal, Dad dead. Yep, your dad saved the planet. I mean, it was mostly everybody else on the Earth, but he did his part. But then it's still not over yet because the blast sends a shockwave from Jupiter heading back to the planet. So they got about 7 minutes to get underground. The truck gets hit, gets blown up. Lynn and Dodo will fall into their death. But they get protected by this bubble thing. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. They used it earlier in the movie, so there you go. It brought back itself up again. Some people died, some people survived, but the Earth is saved. I swear these visuals are just awesome to look at. I'm telling you, only in Mandarin movies do they look this clear and beautiful. It's crazy. 3 years later, they done built shit back up, and everything's all good and gravy. The end. And there you have The Wandering Earth. I say check it out. It's a hell of a watch. The Wandering Earth on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Slick DZ out the easy, mister. Big. You got that slogan.